January 25th Finance Committee meeting. Meeting is called to order at 6:01 p.m. We will kick things off tonight with temporary resolution 20-21. This is a resolution that corresponds to the ordinance that we have on the agenda for tonight's meeting as well. Ordinance 2-21. This is a resolution needed due to an upcoming retirement of an employee in the tax department and is to complete an additional appropriation needed to cover the cost of a new hire, creating an overlap as the retiree is leaving in March in the middle of tax season, and it deals with costs associated with that retirement.
Yes.
Does anybody have, I think I covered everything.
You
so,
got it all.
Does anybody have any questions? We talked about this at the last meeting. Go ahead.
I'll make her do all the heavy lifting. Jeez.
She's retiring in the middle of tax season and leaving us high and dry. I need somebody to collect the income tax.
Okay.
Does that work, Tom?
It's all good.
Happy now?
I am.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding this resolution? We did talk about it at the last council meeting, so we knew it was coming.
Good.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
Thank you.
I have Mr. Stoughton as my second, and we will be suspending tonight on this resolution. Next resolution is temporary resolution 21-21, coming through safety. It's a resolution to allow receipt of a donation in the amount of $25,500 that was received from a fundraiser held by Brad Hutchinson a few months back. Mrs. Bobbitt.
Thank you very much. This is a wonderful donation, but the chief is here, and I'm going to let him speak on this wonderful donation that we're receiving.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, Brad Hutchison had a fundraiser for both the police department and myself, our department, as well as the sheriff's department, and they raised a sizable amount of money. And so the mayor had called me back in the fall and asked what we really needed, and we needed to replace our ballistic vests this year. So we thought that would be an appropriate and worthy thing to do. So that's what we're here for. We're asking to be able to use that money that we had placed in the donation line item, pull that out, and use that for ballistic vests and some ballistic helmets. I might also add, and I think I can speak on behalf of Chief Pilar, it was going to be split 3 ways, and Sheriff Lape graciously said, you know, you guys are in some financial hardships. I will donate my portion to both he and I. So we split that, and so it bumped ours up a little bit. So thank you.
Okay, any
Thank you.
questions for Chief Ward?
And since it is money coming in, and it's great money coming in, I'm going to suspend the night on this.
And I have Mr. Matlin as your second.
Yes, thank you.
Any Any other questions on 21-21? Okay. Next resolution is 22-21. This is a resolution for receipt of a grant totaling $75,000 for Veterans Treatment Court, which is to be utilized to pay for peer support services, housing, and drug testing supplies coming through finance. And I see we have someone to add some color to what I already said.
Judge Fields, hope you're all okay. Haven't seen you in a while. It's money we got from the state. It's $75,000 for Patriot Court specialty docket for veterans. I'd ask for, if you had just the one reading or whatever you do, because we have to spend it by June 30th. We just got it. I have 4 specialty dockets: Patriot, Special Abilities, Mental Health, and Drug and Alcohol. We just lost our grant for mental health. We didn't lose it. It just didn't get renewed, but it's not a problem. We've got the money within to take care of it. We've shifted around. I want you to know that we're still dedicated to the community service program we've got. We've got those funds. Everything will run fine. But this money can help veterans. We need it for supplies and contracts. One of the things we're going to do is we'll hire a peer supporter with that money, someone that's been through a program with us already and is a veteran, so they can work with the veteran and help them get through the issues they're going through, drug and alcohol, mental health, whatever it may be. But that's what the money's for. And again, they backdated it to July 1st last year, but they only gave us the money recently. So it's new monies that we need to start using to assist veterans. That's what we got. So.
Okay, any questions for Judge Fields? Yes, Orman?
I'm gonna toss in the softball here just quickly.
Oh, thank you.
Because Jim Fields needs softball.
I do. I can't have anything too complicated, you know that.
How many participants do we have in the 4 specialized dockets that you're coming?
Right now in Veterans Court, 12? 13, with a couple that we talked about today. Mental Health, 18. Drug and Alcohol, or Recovery Court, 13, but we've had a maximum of 32. Special Abilities, right now, we only have 1, which I'm very proud of because we were at 11 at one point. Special Abilities is my, in conjunction with the County Board of Developmental Disabilities, it's kind of a diversion program. We've been up to 11 or 12. Recidivism, we've only had 1 since that started, and she graduated again. Really happy with that court. We received no funding for that court. That's just a kind of a court we made up. So those are our numbers. Right now, Recovery Court's kind of low just because summer of COVID, but it's been up to 30, 32. I figure each of those courts could take a maximum of 20 to 25 without driving the probation officer crazy. It is an intensive court. My probation officer's available. Whoever has that docket is available 24 hours a day. My drug and alcohol, mental health people get calls all night long. You know, I'm getting ready to use, talk me off the ledge. So they do a good job. But yeah, there's less numbers for them, but it's more intensive. I did run some numbers recently. We have 3,111 people on probation. It's down from a couple years ago. We had over 7,000. Now, a lot of those just hadn't been terminated or whatever, but most of them are not intense. It's just non-reporting. But if you're going to be intensely supervised, it's typically through one of the specialty dockets. Thanks for the softball. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Martin?
Don't ask me a hard question.
Is it possible that you think this might be some more grant funding in the future for the veterans, or is this?
We hope so, but the thing I've got is the way I started the Patriot Court was that I needed to expand my recovery court. And as you know, Tamara is my director, and they always send somebody with me to keep an eye on me. Jackie couldn't be here, so it's Tamara's job. So we had to expand our programming to get another grant. We expanded it to Patriot Court, and we got another grant. I mean, we'll just keep applying for grants as long as we can, and then if we can't, we'll figure out, just like with mental health court. We had applied for an extension on mental health court, and we included a domestic violence court. We didn't get it this time, but we figured out ways to work around that, you know, use resources to keep those going, because we feel mental health courts are just as important as the rest of them. Yeah, so we'll just keep applying for grants as much as possible. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I thought you had a question, Randall. I didn't know if you were allowed to ask one, so.
Not my meeting.
All
No,
right,
sir.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Judge.
So, Mr. Stoughton, I have you as my second, and we will suspend on that this evening.
Got it.
resolution is 23-21. This is to authorize the then and now certificate to pay an invoice for TriTech Software Systems. This resolution is to cover the cost of Emergitech annual maintenance fee in the amount of $8,830.99. Chief Ward.
Yes, last year we implemented our mobile data terminals, and so this is a renewal fee that we weren't aware of. The invoice actually came to the Information Technology Department. It was dated December the 30th. We weren't aware of it. We received it on the 11th of January, and therefore we did not have a purchase order, so we were not aware of the invoice, so we didn't have that set up. So that's what this is.
And since it's a then and now, I am gonna ask for suspension this evening. Thank you, Chief.
And I have Mr. Matlin as your second.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions on 23-21? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, temporary resolution 24-21. This is a resolution coming through economic development, which will allow for money not spent in 2020 for home rehab projects to be reappropriated for the same types of expenses in 2021. And I see Linda at our podium to give us more.
These were funds that we had intended, were meant to be spent in 2020 on housing rehab projects. They weren't spent, projects weren't far enough along, and I just didn't put them into the 2021 budget before that budget got finalized.
Okay. Any additional questions? Mr. McDaniel, I have Mr. Stoughton as your second, and I have 3 readings. Is that still good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Temporary resolution 25-21. This is a resolution to approve a collective bargaining agreement between the city of Lancaster and the patrol officers. Coming through finance, but I'm going to defer to Mr. Martin for additional information.
So we're very grateful that we were able to come to an agreement with our patrol officers. We still have three other bargaining units that we're working with right now. Not a lot of changes here. As I gave you a briefing here from Gretchen, our HR person, hours work overtime, we kind of tweaked that. The courts have changed a little bit where we can try to minimize some of the OT hours when they were just called on a phone. So it's a great improvement from the city's perspective. And Article 34 on vacations, we needed some clarification language. We had actually possible grievance type issue that we had to get resolved in there and making sure it's standard across the city with what we're trying to offer. Health insurance, that was a very important thing to us. We're trying to move towards by 2022 for everybody in the city to be kind of basically on the same plan. And that was a wonderful thing to see us achieve. It's gonna make us be a little bit better and maybe getting some better quotes as we move forward and not the complexities of the current plan that they're under. We went ahead and increased in Article 47 about life insurance. We agreed with the members that we thought that 26,000 was a little not enough, so we went up to 50,000 on that if there's a loss of life for that employee. And then Article 60, you know, we're very grateful for the levy that was passed. And one of the issues that we brought up through this whole process of passing the levy is retention of our officers and trying to not lose them to other agencies. And that was one of the things that we're fulfilling our promise to try to increase their wages in a manner over the next 3 years. So we settled in at a 5% increase for the next 3 years, which gets us in that ballpark. You know, and they're very grateful, so it was a very generous offer, and we're hopeful, and I actually think it's worked. I think we've had some that have decided not to go somewhere, just knowing that this agreement is done. You know, so I think we're staying within the guidelines of what we promised the public in this levy being passed. So this is really the major changes. We have some little tiny tweaks of language, and a lot of times it's about language tweaks that can make a difference there. We have a time frame that we have to get this done, so we're asking for suspension of second, third reading It really needs to be passed tonight, right, Law Director Olem?
That's correct.
And so that's typically what we do. We're not really close on the other bargaining units right now, but we're gonna come in with similar legislation for our other ones as we proceed.
Okay. Mr. McDaniel, did I see your hand up?
I'm sorry?
Did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to I guess, extrapolate on something that the safety director said. One of the largest impacts to overtime, police overtime, is going to court. The contract previously had a 3-hour minimum. I think the officer has to get up, take a shower, drive in, go to court, et cetera. They had a 3-hour minimum. With the new tweak allowing the hour and a half for video appearance or phone appearance, it's going to be a significant cost savings, I think. And Chief Pilar could address that, but I would think, based on my experience, that'd be a significant savings in police overtime. And also the changes in the insurance. Should be a more level playing field for city employees. And I also think the retention is critically important. And we lost some outstanding police and firefighters in the last 18 months that would not have left here had they known that the voters were going to support them and that the city understood the need to pay them to keep them. And when a city the size of Groveport pays higher police salaries than we do, it's concerning. So I think this contract is a step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Oh, gosh.
No, you were first.
Mr. James.
Just a quick point of clarification. The salary increases are 5% per year for each of the years?
That's correct.
Got it.
Yes. And we had a certain goal that we thought we needed to get to. It's still below. You mentioned one city, and we can do comparables. We do comparables all the time as we go into negotiations. It's not just an arrow shooting in the dark. We have a direction we're going there with.
Yeah, I mentioned that one particularly because we lost an officer to that city.
Yes.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
He just answered my question on comparing to the other cities. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Stoughton?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the update that you sent us well in advance of the meeting. I know I appreciate that, and I'm sure everyone else does. Secondly, you said you weren't close with the other 3 bargaining units?
So we still have meetings in the future. We could go into February and March. So we have a timeliness we have to get to you. It has to be approved by the bargaining unit. Then we have, I think it's maybe 10 days, we have to get here to this body to get it approved. So it's not because we're arguing. No, it's about just timing. And it's just a really busy time to orchestrate. And I've been through a lot of negotiations through the years, but we're really punched here. And it really was about delaying the negotiations because the levy was on the table.
Sure, no, I get
Quite
it.
frankly, if I was them, I would understand why they delayed it. So that's kind of why this is somewhat unusual. That's why we're doing it. But I don't think there's a lot of disagreement. I'm very hopeful, and we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, and everything's retroactive back to January 1st, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, to Mr. McDaniel's point, Don, if we could have paid him more, we would have.
Oh, I know we would have.
You knew that,
I-
so-
No knock on the leadership of the city.
Yeah, no, I know. But thank goodness we're in a much, much better place.
Yes.
So we have an opportunity to retain and add and appropriately compensate. That's very important. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions or discussion on this resolution? Okay, we will be asking for suspension, and Mrs. Bobbitt, I have you as my second.
Thank you.
Resolution 26-21, this is a resolution to approve a then and now certificate for services that occurred in late December. I believe this is for legal services, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah, we just, as it states here, we had to get some outside expertise to help us with economic development issue. We have not received an invoice yet. I wanted to bring it in, but I had retained these legal services right about the end of last year. So Still waiting on that first invoice, so if we could go 2 readings on this. This is in relation to Project Ruby, and we've got an NDA, so I apologize that there's not more information in there, but I'm trying to comply with our NDA as well, so.
Okay. Mr. Stoughton, I have you as my second on that. Any questions on 26-21? All right. Do I have any other resolutions to come before finance? See none. We will go to departmental updates. Do we have any departmental updates tonight?
Yes, I'd like to kind of brief you on a few personnel changes. We have 2 upcoming retirements, 1st of March. Firefighter Conrad and firefighter Howdy Shell will be leaving us. We expect, well, he's already been given a job offer. One of our young firefighters is going to Franklin County Fire Department, and we tentatively expect his departure on February 22nd. So with that being said, we just hired Cam Love. He started on his first shift on Friday. We have 6 interviews coming up on the first week of February, and we're hopeful for that. We also have our new test coming up in early February. So we're trying to keep this, it's going to be a continual process for us to try and retain people and attract people. So we're doing our best to get people on board. So, and finally, I'd like to introduce, if you would let me, Assistant Chief Maffin. I'm not sure if everybody's met him or not, but please come up, Steve.
All right. Well, hi. For those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Steve Maffin, Assistant Chief since middle of October. So I'm just kind of here today just to, sorry, excuse me, just seeing how City Council meeting goes here. Haven't bothered to ever attend one before, and apparently introduce myself to everybody. So, hi.
I might add, he's doing a great job. He's been with us for 26 years. He's also a flight medic for, not SkyMed, but Med Flight for 16. So he's doing a great job. So I'm real happy to have him on board. So, thank you.
If I could add one thing, he has particular fondness for public servants like ourselves.
Okay, thank you, Chief Ward. Are there any other departmental updates this evening? Yes, Mr. Martin?
I'd just like to let you know, Steve Maffin also is extremely, very knowledgeable as a teacher, and paramedics has been a great help to us. He's been really kind of our officer that's helped us on determining a lot of issues with our COVID and 19 issues that we've had, caused a lot more hours, but thankful for his advice and wisdom as he's given to me. I'd also like to just let you know, I don't specifically have a time frame when I bring legislation in here, but we're actively moving forward another fulfillment that we had on this levy that we had passed in November, which we're very grateful for. We're looking at doing some improvements to City Hall. We're just in the, we're continuing, 5 years ago, I kind of had an evaluation done on the building. And so there would be times that I'm going to come back in here for some legislation as we move forward with that improvement. And we'll give you more information about it. I just want to let you know it's going to be a multi-million-dollar project. I'm estimating that it probably could be well over $4 million, but nothing like this has been done in this building since it was built, but we're dealing with the outer shell as well as the roof and some of the interior things. But I will say, structurally, this is really a solid building. A lot of people look at that beautiful stone. I'd like to make it even better looking and seal up the tuck pointing, but structurally, it's a solid steel beam building. You don't realize that until you get in there. But, I'm proud to go to work in that wonderful office every day, but we're looking forward to seeing that and try to do the best we can on what's best to maybe give us another 100 years in this building. And just want to let you know about it. I don't have any time frames yet, but we'll have multiple legislations as we come forward with that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Schoonover?
I just wanted to update some info. I think Mr. Stoughton asked about it. Temporary Resolution 821 with the rock salt purchase. I talked to Greg Hint, so unfortunately, when I talked to him, he was not in front of it, but last year we paid roughly $83.95 a ton, and with this year's prices, it's down like $17 and some change per ton, so down closer to $66, so. it's-
Supply problem.
Huh?
Yeah, too much supply.
Everybody had plenty, so,
Good,
we got lucky on that, I guess.
good.
So there's your update for the pricing.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other departmental updates? All right, I will, not seeing any, I will turn it over to President Wolf to talk about tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We do have one ordinance tonight, 3-21, an ordinance to accept the final plat for Timber Top Phase 1. This coming through Code Enforcement and Zoning. Mr. Matlin.
Would it be appropriate for Stephen to talk about it now, or you want to wait till the meeting?
We can do it right now.
Mr. Wellston?
Good evening, everybody. So this legislation deals with the Timber Top property there up on North Columbus between Hillcrest Drive and Woodland Heights Lane. The developer is moving through the subdivision process. The plans have been approved for all the infrastructure improvements. If you've been by there last week, you'll have noticed that, you may have noticed that construction has started there in the sanitary sewer on Cold Spring Drive. And they went before Planning Commission earlier this month, asking for them to approve the final plat for the first phase, and it was unanimously approved. So the next step, of course, is moving that to City Council here. The legislation, of course, for Phase 1, the final plat for Phase 1 will consist of 2 lots, a block area where a regional retention basin will be located, and then there's going to be an extension of Hawthorne Drive, the existing city street, which is going to meet Timber Top Street, which will be a new road coming off of North Columbus. And the improvements will also include a T turnaround at the end of Cold Spring Drive there that terminates into the property. That'll allow fire trucks, sanitation vehicles, and whatnot to turn around much easier. And that, I think, is all I have for the moment, at least, that I want to let you know about the legislation. I will note that the developer has requested 2 readings. Normally, I would bring legislation asking the typical 3, but they wanted me to pass along their hope that it could be done in 2 readings. Basically, their reasoning amounted to the fact that this has been a fairly publicized development here for some time through the annexation and other items. There have been various public hearings. So the thought is that the public is pretty well informed about it. And then the closing on one of the properties, one of the lots that's going to be sold as part of Phase 1 is tied to the recording of the plat. So they figured it'd be nice to get that a couple weeks earlier and get that done. So I'll pass that along for you to consider. And I don't know if I have anything else, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
So the 2 contingencies where they have to obviously have performance bond, which they should have that before they started, I would hope.
So the bond is actually required before the plat is recorded. And what we do is basically we hold on to the plat, which is signed by the city folks, signifying that it's been approved by City Council, it's been approved by Planning Commission, and we will not turn that over to them until they have provided us with a bond for the full amount of all the improvements they need to construct and haven't constructed at that point.
So the second contingency where it's all turns out to be one lot.
Yes.
I don't see how that happens until the next phase and the final phase is done. Is that correct or not?
So that one contingency, basically the existing property consists of 7 different tax parcel IDs, and what we've asked them to do, or basically what Planning Commission asked them to do as a contingency of their approval, was to combine those into one. And basically the thought there is that as they move with their phases through the property, there's going to be multiple phases. Properties are going to get chopped up into new properties. So we thought that if there were already a variety of different properties that were being split up even further, it could make that a little messy. So our thought was, again, basically combine the whole 77 or whatever odd acres into one property, so that as they move forward, there's only basically one parcel left as they continue to go. It'll just get smaller and smaller until the whole property's developed. So hopefully that makes sense.
It does.
Okay, good.
Mr. James?
Quick question for you, Steve. As I'm looking at this drawing here, is it fair to say that some of the stormwater mitigation plan that you have here is gonna route everything over to Block A, where the retention pond will be, correct?
So a vast majority of the stormwater in Phase 1 will be heading there. Based on the grading, it was not possible to take all of the acreage over to the west there. There will be a very small slither along the eastern end of the homes that abut, I believe it's Marvell. So there are homes that abut Marvell, and then the back parts of those properties do abut the Timbertop property. And again, a vast majority of that property in the Timbertop will stay there and be detained before being discharged, but there will be a small sliver that will still flow into those properties as it currently does. But I will note that, and I've explained this to various folks that have shown concern, that the amount of acreage that currently drains there is going to be vastly decreased with this project. So they will not be discharging more stormwater. Actually, less will be going into those backyard areas than what occurs currently.
I've not really received too many requests for information on this, and I appreciate all the heavy-duty planning that you're doing, but it looks like, as you said, it's going to help solve some of the runoff that goes down through the Marble Street and even along Cold Spring and some of those.
Yeah, it should. Again, we're definitely taking acreage away from that area, and again, it should be an improvement, I would say, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. James. Any other questions tonight for Mr. Wellsted? Yes, Ms. Bobbitt.
Just a quick question. Did you say it passed Planning Commission unanimously?
Yes, with
Okay.
some contingencies, and a couple of those contingencies, one that Councilman Matlin referenced was the combination of the parcels, and two others were changes to the plat, and those changes have been made to our satisfaction and are shown in the current plat that was provided with the legislation.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Mr. Matlin?
And I was hoping Mr. Hall would second that for me.
Okay, so Mr. Hall will be the second, and what's your pleasure on this tonight? Two
It's
readings?
probably gonna be two, yeah.
Okay,
Unless
two
we-
readings work?
Sure, absolutely. I'll let the developer know.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll be happy. Thank you.
Very good. So two readings on temporary ordinance 3-21 with Mr. Hall as the second. Thank you, Mr. Wellsted. Appreciate the information. The only other thing I'll mention tonight as we prepare for the meeting is that Law Director Ullum does have a proclamation that I think most all of you have signed. If you haven't signed it, please see him at the break. Mr. Ullum, we're going to ask that you, during new business and presentations tonight, read this into the record. And if you want to talk just a minute about what it is we're trying to do here, that might be helpful for both the folks at home and those in attendance here.
Absolutely. Thank you, President. Well, I, as many others, were saddened to learn last week that Judge Chris Martin has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and is in his home receiving hospice care. For those of you, by show of hands, how many of you know Judge Martin? Yeah, he's touched a lot of folks. Great man, great jurist, great attorney, just one of the, no offense, Judge Fields, but one of the best temperaments of a judge that I've ever experienced or whatever as an attorney. And so I talked to the mayor the other day, I talked to President Ohl, and I really appreciate everyone coming together for this proclamation for him, based on just his years of elected public service as a judge, not only in the municipal court, but in the common pleas court. His professionalism, integrity, his dedication to the community in community service and things he did, and to his church, St. Mary's. He's just a great man, and very thankful that you all were willing to sign on with this. So, thank you.
So we'll work through that under new business and presentations tonight. Thank you, Law Director Ullum. Anyone have questions or thoughts before we move off of that topic? If not, then that concludes our prep for tonight, and I will pass it back to the chairman.
Thank you very much, President Wool. Are there any other items for finance? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Motion carried. We are adjourned at 6:33 p.m.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at 6:40.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
Swing into the Carriage Company and check out our sweet deals.
If you're looking for the best selection of clean, quality used vehicles, look no further than the Carriage Company. You'll feel secure with your purchase, knowing all vehicles undergo an extensive safety and service check prior to the sale. And all vehicles can be viewed online at carriagecompany.com. The Carriage Company, located at 1031 North Memorial Drive in Lancaster.
Wait!
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Good evening. Welcome to the Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, here we are once again, thankful for your many blessings, thankful for how you continue to work in our life and in the life of our city. Continue to be with those who are suffering tonight for whatever reason, whether it be illness or something else. We ask that you would go and be with them in a special way. We pray for those who, Lord, are unable to be with us tonight, whether here or watching. We think particularly of Judge Martin. We ask that you would be with him and his family during this time. May you provide comfort and care in only the way that you can. Bless our time together, bless our meeting, and help us to do what is in the best interest of the citizens of Lancaster, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll ask as we continue forward with tonight's meeting that you, members of council and administration in particular, please speak directly into the microphones so that you can be picked up for the TV audience. With that, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Here.
Mrs. Downhour.
Here.
Mr. Hall. Here. Mr. James.
Here.
Mr. Matlin.
Here.
Mr. McDaniel.
Here.
Mr. Schoonover.
Here.
Mr. Stoughton.
Here.
And Mrs. Teener.
Ms. Teener is joining us tonight, is on the phone. That is her, that little box right there. So for anyone who may be looking for her, she is on the telephone tonight. Let the record reflect all 9 members of Lancaster City Council are in attendance. Reading and disposing of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated January the 11th, 2020.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we receive and file the journal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports to city officials.
Email dated January 12th, 2021 regarding IT committee meeting dates submitted by Mr. Stoughton. Email dated January 14th, 2021 regarding timber top updates submitted by city engineer Mitch Nolan. Series of emails regarding the January 25th council meeting submitted by Mrs. Teener. Email dated January 18th, 2021 regarding the January 25th council meeting submitted by President Uhl. Email dated January 20th, 2021 regarding economic development agenda submitted by Mr. McDaniel. Email dated January 22nd, 2021 regarding LPD officer contract changes submitted by Mr. Matlin. Email dated January the 22nd, 2021 regarding LPD officer contract changes submitted by Gretchen Nottheiser, Personnel Director. Email dated January 22nd, 2021 regarding Facebook post regarding gas rates increase submitted by Mayor David Scheffler. Email dated January 25th, 2021 regarding Finance Committee agenda submitted by Mrs. Downhour. And finally, an email dated January 25th, 2021 regarding proclamation submitted by Law Director Randall Allam.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports to city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications?
There is one. Email dated January 20th, 2021 regarding the January 25th council meeting submitted by Bob Campetti from Interface Video.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the communication.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive and file communications. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any petitions or memorials this evening?
There are none to be presented.
During this time, Lancaster City Council sets time aside for the voters and taxpayers of Lancaster to address us on any item or issue you would like. If you'd like to address City Council tonight, we ask that you would come forward, state your name and address for the record, and record the same on the clipboard in front of you. Please note that during this time, Lancaster City Council will not respond to you or your questions, but may choose to do so at a later time during the meeting. In accordance with the rules of council, we ask that you would keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Is there anyone who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? All right, very good. Thank you for being here. Are there reports of standing committees?
There are two. Finance Committee meeting dated January the 11th, 2021, submitted by Mrs. Downhour, and the Water Pollution Control meeting dated January 13th, 2021, submitted by Mr. James.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there reports of special committees?
There are none to be presented.
We have no public hearings scheduled this evening. We'll move to the reading of resolutions, beginning with the third reading of temporary resolution 137-20.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the Northeast Gas Main Replacement Project, offered by Mrs. Teener, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mrs. Teener.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass and growth and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 137-20.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 137-20. Discussion, Ms. Teener.
Yes, I believe Kurt is there, just to kind of refresh everybody's memory. This is the third reading that was introduced first in our meeting, I think, the December 14th. So if he could kind of refresh everybody's memory, and if anybody has a question.
Yeah, we're just looking to go out to bid for a 3-year construction project. Kind of the areas that we're looking at for gas main replacement and associated service replacement are the 500 to 1,000 block of King of Mulberry from Maple to Cherry Street. The second area is Franklin, Harding, Medill, and East 6 from Madison and Cherry. And third is out to the east side of town, Pleasant View Drive, Lynn Drive, Concordia Drive. There's 692 services that we'll be replacing. That's from the curb all the way up to the meter, bringing any meters that are inside, bringing those to the outside. 5.1 miles of aging infrastructure, bare steel that we'll be replacing with new polyethylene pipe. So that's kind of the gist of the project, if anybody has any questions.
Very good. Any questions or comments? Thank you, sir. Ms. Teener, anything else this evening?
No, thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
All right, very good. If there's no other questions or comments, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 137-20 passes 9-0. We now have second reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 2-21.
A resolution authorizing the Law Director's Office to apply for a Violence Against Women Act grant, VAWA, offered by Mrs. Downauer, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downauer.
Second of 3 readings, please.
Second reading on temporary resolution 2-21. Temporary resolution 3-21.
A resolution authorizing the disposition of city property no longer needed via auction or internet auction for 2021, offered by Mrs. Downauer, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mrs. Downauer.
Second of 3 readings, please.
Second reading on temporary resolution 3-21. Temporary resolution 4-21.
A resolution to allow the Lancaster City Auditor to request an advance of funds from Fairfield County of the city's apportionment of tax settlements for 2021, offered by Mrs. Downauer, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downauer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 4-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 4-21. Discussion, Ms. Downauer.
Not at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Ms. Downauer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 4-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4-21. Ms. Downauer.
Yes, thank you. This resolution is so that the city auditor can request an advance of funds from Fairfield County of the city's apportionment of tax settlements for 2021.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 4-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 5-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the purchase of salt for use by the Water Department, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
This is the second of 3 readings.
Second reading then on temporary resolution 5-21. Temporary resolution 6-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the purchase of phosphate for use by the Water Department, offered by Mr. James, seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
This also is the second of 3 readings.
Second reading on temporary resolution 6-21. Temporary resolution 8-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with ODOT to purchase sodium chloride rock salt for the 2021 through 2022 winter season, offered by Mr. Schoonover, seconded by Mr. James.
Mr. Schoonover?
Second to 3 readings, please.
Second reading on temporary resolution 8-21, temporary resolution 9-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor for the Gas Fund 6002, Water Fund 6003, Water Pollution Fund 6004, the Stormwater Fund 6006, and the General Fund 1001, and if needed, issue one then and now certificate for payment to PNC, offered by Mrs. Downer, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Ms. Downhour?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 9-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 9-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Discussion, sure. Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall? Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Ms. Downhour?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporary numbered 9-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 9-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour?
Yes, thank you. This resolution is to cover the potential outside costs of any legal counsel that would be required.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall? Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 9-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 15-21.
A resolution to amend the certificate with the county auditor, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, increase receipts, and complete a fund transfer in the Water Fund 6003 and in the Water Utility Reserve Fund 6027, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James,
This is the second of 3 readings.
second to 3 readings on temporary resolution 15-21. Temporary resolution 16-21.
A resolution to amend the certificate with the county auditor, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, increase receipts, and complete a fund transfer in the Wastewater Fund 6004 and in the Wastewater Utility Reserve Fund 6029, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James,
This is the second of 3 readings.
second to 3 readings on temporary resolution 16-21. And we'll have first reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 20-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the City Income Tax Fund 2016, offered by Mrs. Downhour, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downhour?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 20-21.
Second?
It's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 20-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour?
I'll save it.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Downhour?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 20-21.
Second?
A motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 20-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour?
Yes, thank you. This resolution corresponds to temporary ordinance 2-21 and is a resolution that's needed due to the upcoming retirement of an employee in the tax department. And this is needed to cover the cost of the new hire, which is creating an overlap as the retiree is leaving in March.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 20-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 21-21.
A resolution to increase receipts and appropriate from the unencumbered balance, amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the .45 Police and Fire Levy Fund 2047, and authorize the issuance of a then and now certificate for these purchases, offered by Mrs. Bobbitt, seconded by Mr. Matlin.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading on temporary resolution number 2121.
Second.
A motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 21-21. Discussion on the motion to suspend, Ms. Bobbitt.
Not at this time. Thank you.
Discussion. Yes, thank you. Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Bobbitt.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution number 2121.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 21-21. Ms. Bobbitt.
As we learned from Chief Ward during this evening's financial meeting, this is a lovely grant that we've received, or that the fire department is receiving from the works of Mr. Brad Hutchinson. I'm sure there might have been others that were involved in this, but he's the one who put it together. The fire department, the sheriff's office, and the police department, you know, have the bounties now of his work. So I'd like to, you know, as we're doing tonight, you know, we suspended on this and pass this tonight so we can get these funds to purchase the vests for the fire department.
Thank you, Ms. Bobbitt. And I'll just clarify that, as was mentioned briefly in the meeting, that the sheriff's office
Yes.
did, what word am I looking for? I guess give over their portion, and that was split evenly between fire and police, so we're thankful to Sheriff Lape for doing that. Further discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 21-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 22-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations with the county auditor and Fund 2039 to increase receipts and appropriate from the unencumbered balance in the drug court Fund 2039, offered by Mrs. Downauer, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downauer.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of resolution temporarily numbered 22-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 22-21. Ms. Downauer.
I'll save it.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Downauer.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 22-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 22-21. Discussion, Ms. Downauer.
Yes, thank you. This resolution is so that we can accept a grant that was received by the Fairfield County Municipal Court for Veterans Treatment Court. The grant is in the amount of $75,000, and it will be used for housing, drug testing supplies, and peer support services.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Downauer. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downauer?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 22-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 23-21.
A resolution to authorize then and now certificate to pay an invoice for Tritech Software Systems, offered by Mrs. Bobbitt, seconded by Mr. Matlin.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading on temporary resolution number 2321.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 2321. Ms. Bobbitt.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Bobbitt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution number 2321.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 23-21. Ms. Bobbitt.
As we learned from Chief Ward during finance meeting, this is a then and now. They do have the invoice on hand for the software maintenance fees for the mobile data terminal units that are in the vehicles. And I think this is something new to the fire department. Very much needed for anyone that has to be in a vehicle so they can stay in contact with their dispatch. So we do need to pass this evening.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Bobbitt. Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 25-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 26-21.
24. 24, 21.
Wait, did I get that far ahead? No, I want to be done with those other ones. Let's just move on down. Temporary resolution 23-21 passed 9-0. We now move to temporary resolution 24-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the Community Development Chip Home Program Fund 2083, offered by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. McDaniel.
First of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 24-21. Temporary resolution 25-21.
A resolution to approve a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Lancaster and the patrol officers with respect to compensation and other matters relating to working conditions, offered by Mrs. Downhour, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mrs. Downer.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of resolution temporarily numbered 25-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 25-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour.
Not at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution, motion to suspend passes 9-0. Ms. Downhour.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 25-21.
Second?
Oops, sorry.
You jump on it whenever you want there. We'll take all the seconds. All right. We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 25-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour.
Yes, thank you. As was discussed in the finance meeting, Mr. Martin gave a very good update as it relates to the collective bargaining agreement with patrol officers. And it is necessary that we suspend tonight and get this passed. We have reached an agreement and are very excited that we have the opportunity to retain our officers and not let them go to other cities for more pay. And we've reached an agreement on health insurance and an increase in life insurance, so it really is an accomplishment to reach an agreement, so.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Downhour. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. James.
Yes.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton.
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 25-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 26-21.
A resolution to authorize a then and now certificate to pay an invoice for outside legal services in furtherance of economic development, offered by Mrs. Downhour, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downhour.
First of two readings.
First of two readings on temporary resolution 26-21. Are there further resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we'll move to the reading of ordinances, beginning with the second reading of temporary ordinance 2-21.
An ordinance to amend ordinance 31-20, repeal and replace existing 31-20, and declare an emergency for the non-union pay ordinance. Offered by Mrs. Downhour, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Ms. Downhour.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of ordinance temporarily numbered 2-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 2-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour?
Not at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall? Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Downhour.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily numbered 2-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 2-21. Discussion, Ms. Downhour.
Yes, thank you. This is the pay ordinance that corresponds to temporary resolution 20-21 and will take care of an impending retirement in the tax department.
Very good. Is there further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Downhour?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 2-21 passes 9-0. We now have first reading on temporary ordinance 3-21.
An ordinance to accept the final plat for Timber Top Phase 1, offered by Mr. Matlin, seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. Matlin.
First of two readings.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 3-21. Are there further ordinances to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we have no tabled legislation tonight. Is there unfinished business to come before City Council? If not, I'll mention briefly, I updated you at the last meeting that the salary review work team has come together, and we added a couple of members, so I'm going to run through them very quickly. Our first meeting is this Friday, and I am thankful that Katie Isles, Abby Watson, Maureen Ogilvie, Larry Ailes, and Michael Kreitz are all joining the committee along with Miss Bobbitt, Miss Nyheiser, and myself. So again, we'll be meeting Friday, and we will be working through a number of documents. Again, the focus and bulk of the work is looking at non-union pay and attempting to compare it to union counterparts to ensure that there is parity across the city. We'll be bringing recommendation to this body, hopefully in the next couple of months, if not sooner. With that, is there other unfinished business this evening? Seeing none, is there new business this evening? I know Law Director Allum has new business tonight during our new business / presentation time. Law Director?
Thank you, President Ull. As I stated to you earlier, in finance, received some sad news last week that Judge Chris Martin has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and is receiving hospice care at his home. So in getting with you, President Ull, and Mayor Scheffler, wanted to do something just to show him and show his wife Star how much we appreciate all he's done for Lancaster and this community. So thank you to all of you for signing this, but it's a City of Lancaster, Ohio proclamation. I'd like to read it if I could. Whereas the City of Lancaster, Ohio, through the undersigned elected officials, wish to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank Judge Chris Martin for his lifelong dedication and commitment to the citizens of Lancaster. And whereas Chris was born in Lancaster, Ohio in 1954, and whereas after graduating from Lancaster High School in 1972, Chris attended Ohio University and earned a degree in industrial engineering in 1976. And whereas Chris married his wife Star in 1976 and worked as an engineer for Diamond Power until 1978, when he enrolled in the Ohio Northern University School of Law, completing his Juris Doctorate degree in 1981. And whereas Chris began his legal career as associate attorney at the law firm of Drinkle, Martin, and Kelly in Lancaster, and later as an associate attorney for the law firm of Lance, and Lip, while also serving as an acting judge in what was then the Lancaster Municipal Court. And whereas Chris was appointed by Governor Voinovich to a seat on the now Fairfield County Municipal Court in 1995, and was subsequently elected municipal court judge, where he served until his election as judge of the Fairfield County Common Pleas Court in 2003, where he served until his retirement from the bench in 2015. And whereas Chris has dedicated his life to serving his community in elected public office, and through his extensive community service as a patient and family care volunteer with Fair Hope Hospice, spending his time with hospice patients and their families, serving his faith community as a greeter and Eucharistic minister at St. Mary's of the Assumption Church, serving on the boards of the Recovery Center and the Metropolitan Housing Authority, serving as president of the Fairfield County Bar Association, and serving as a judicial mentor for the Ohio State Bar Association. And whereas Judge Chris Martin is well known within the legal community as an intelligent, kind, humble man of immense integrity and even temperament, dedicated to the law as a consummate gentleman and professional who imparts his professionalism daily to everyone, as evidenced by his receipt of the George Martin Award in 2014 from the Fairfield County Bar Association. Now, therefore, we, the undersigned elected officials of the City of Lancaster, Ohio, do hereby proclaim, on behalf of the City of Lancaster, Ohio, and its citizens, our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to our native son, Judge Chris Martin, for his dedicated service to his community as a local attorney and a jurist of the Fairfield County Municipal Court and the Fairfield County Common Pleas Court, his professionalism and dedication to our legal community, his endless kindness to friends, family, and neighbors, his community service and dedication and commitment to his faith. We honor his wisdom, integrity, professionalism, and dedicated service to his community. And witness where we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of the City of Lancaster, Ohio, to be affixed this 25th day of January in the year of our Lord 2021, and signed by all the elected officials. So I would also add, in this or whatever preparing, I forgot, he is, even after his retirement, continued on as a visiting judge through the Supreme Court, going all over the state or whatever, actually sitting as a visiting judge, not in our court as well. So our heartfelt thanks go out to him. Our thoughts and prayers go out to him and Star and their family, and I'll make sure that he gets that proclamation.
Very good. Thank you, Law Director Allum. And
Thank
we
you.
certainly appreciate you helping put that together and making this happen, and certainly appreciate Judge Martin and his service to this community.
I just forwarded an email to everyone of a post I was tagged on Facebook from a local citizen in reference to Judge Chris Martin of it looks like she's setting up some account or something for him. So just to let you know to check your email, please.
Very good. Is there further new business this evening? Okay, then we'll ask the clerk reads our regular scheduled city council meetings.
The next meeting, February 8th, the meeting following February 22nd, both meetings at 6:30 PM here in council chambers. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Service, February 5th, 7:30 AM at the 1897 Conference Room in City Hall. Finance, February 8th, here at 6 PM in council chambers. Water Pollution Control, February 10th at 8 AM, 1897 Conference Room, City Hall. Public Works, February 12th at 7:30 AM, 1897 Conference Room, City Hall. And finally, the Finance, February 22nd, 6 PM here in council chambers.
Thank you very much. Are there any bills to pay this evening?
There is a bill, PNC payable to MNCO for publication of legislation in the amount of $298.35.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we pay the bill.
Second.
A motion and a second to pay the bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a need for an executive session? If not, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Please remember to sign your legislation with the clerk. Have a great evening.
Teresa.
Thank you.